Welcome, everybody. My name's Cody. I'll be your MC this evening, and would like you to join our education webinar. I am joined tonight by a few amazing team members. We have Dr. Alison Willis, our Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching. We have Stacey, who's actually one of our current students studying education. And we also have Grayson, who's a recent graduate. I believe just graduated late last year, and has just started her graduate program this year and is now working in the industry. We also have two amazing team members, Jody and Chelsea, who are here tonight to answer all your questions. A little couple of T's and C's for tonight. You can see that there's a Q&A box that's available to you. This is where you can ask all your questions throughout the evening. Jody or Chelsea will be jumping on those and answering those as fast as possible. We will be, how the evening will go is that we'll give you an overview of UniSC. We'll go over a couple of key courses and I guess the differences between them. And then we'll move into, I guess, a discussion panel where we'll get to hear from our wonderful panelists about their experiences, some key information about the courses, as well as be able to answer some of your questions live. If there's anything you are dying to ask and you are not wanting to wait for the panel discussion just yet, like I mentioned, there's a Q&A chat box available to you. Start throwing your questions in now, especially if they're a more personalized question that is based around your experience or your wants and needs. Throw them in and Jody and Chelsea will start answering them now. Okay, we'll get started. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. We pay respect to elders past and present. So if you are new to UniSC or working with University of the Sunshine Coast, we have a few amazing locations where you can study from, especially if you are passionate about education and wanting to study, I guess, on campus or online. So our very first highest northern campus is our Fraser Coast campus based in Hervey Bay. You do have a range of options there as well. Then we have Gympie, Sunshine Coast, which is one of our major campuses, or what I would like to call our full service campus. This is where you're looking for that proper university campus look and feel and lifestyle that comes with all the sporting clubs and everything associated with it. Then we have Caboolture, as well as Moreton Bay, which is one of our newest campuses that comes with amazing facilities, very close to Brisbane. So if you are located in a metro area such as Brisbane or North Brisbane, very easy access. Train line attached, free parking facilities, and beautiful new look and feel. So a really great way to study at one of our brand new campuses as well. If you are looking at studying online, there are some options available to you, but we can go over those as we could discuss the courses right now. So if you are thinking of studying education, who better to bring you all the fun facts about our courses and offerings? We are joined tonight by Dr. Alison Willis, who is our Associate Dean in Learning and Teaching, who will be able to give you, I guess, an update. Alison, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cody, and good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for choosing to spend this time with us. Cody, let's jump right in and let's start at the base level of education, which is early childhood, the early childhood years. So perhaps you are interested in becoming a teacher for children who are in before school, so even from birth all the way through. We have two options at the bachelor level. So please see the difference here between these two bachelor degrees that we offer. One is the Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood. It's a 4-year degree, and it secures you, when you meet all the program requirements, it secures teacher registration in Queensland. And so you could teach in a primary school, prep, year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way up to children of 8 years of age. But you can also be a team leader or a director of an early childhood centre. Now, some people love the early childhood side of the degree and are not so keen on the becoming a primary school teacher part of the degree. So as of 2025, we've developed a brand new degree, which is only 3 years instead of 4. And it's for you to teach from zero, from birth, all the way up to 5 years of age. And so this new degree, this 3-year Bachelor of Education Studies, it doesn't give you teacher registration in Queensland, but it does qualify you to be a director of a centre or an early childhood teacher in a prior to school context. This new degree is offered at the Sunshine Coast campus, and at the Moreton Bay campus. And because it's a little bit free of all the teacher registration requirements, you'll notice that there are not as many prerequisites. As a matter of fact, there's no official prerequisites. So what we've done, because you might be thinking, how can that be? Surely you've got to have some kind of ability. You're right. To teach children, you do need to be able to be good, particularly in literacy and numeracy. So what we've done is we've built into the degree some progression requirements for literacy and numeracy. And what that does for you is if after 1 year of study or 2 years of study, you think to yourself, oh, actually, I might like to become a primary school teacher, you can articulate over to the 4-year degree. So that's the difference between the 2 degrees there. One qualifies you to be a primary school teacher as well, but both of them qualify you for early childhood settings. Our next degree that we offer is the primary program. This is our biggest program and most popular. It's offered at our Fraser Coast campus, Sunshine Coast and Moreton Bay. You just need an English and a mathematics subject from year 12. ATAR level subjects, but there's other pathways in if you didn't do those subjects in year 12. So don't write yourself off, have a conversation with us. First, this qualifies you to teach primary school from prep all the way up to year 6. And at UniSC, we offer 2 specialisations. So you can come out with a general primary school degree, able to take a general classroom, but then you might have a STEM specialisation or an English specialisation, which always looks good for an employer on your resume. The next suite of degrees are our secondary programs. And at UniSC, we do double degrees in the secondary area. So we have 3 double degrees. And what that means is we team up with other schools, with science, with the arts, so that you get your 2 teaching areas for secondary education. If we could go to the next slide, Cody, because it shows our 3 double degrees. So if you were wanting to become an English or geography, history teacher, maybe Japanese studies, screen media, theatre and performance, the Bachelor of Arts and Education would be for you. If you were wanting to become a PE teacher or a marine science teacher, the Bachelor of Recreation and Outdoor Environmental Studies would be for you. Now, this is one of our most popular degrees in the secondary space because there's a lot of field work. There's a lot of opportunities to go bushwalking and hiking and all those sort of things, ride bikes on the beach. There might even be a trip to Gari. So yeah, so this one is actually really, and people sometimes in this degree, instead of choosing to work in a school, choose to work in an outdoor education centre. So that's quite a popular secondary degree. And then, or if you're wanting to become a chemistry, biology, mathematics teacher, then the Bachelor of Science and double degree with education would be the one for you. So there's quite a few options there. You do need your English and your mathematics prereqs. And then if you're wanting to do the science, then also you need science prereqs for that one as well. So have a look at the details, the entry requirements on our website. Let's go. Yep. Now, if you already have a degree, perhaps there's some people in the audience tonight who did an undergraduate degree previously and you're looking at adding teaching or doing a degree that could qualify you to become a registered teacher in Queensland. We've got 2 options at UniSC, and that's our Master of Teaching Primary and our Master of Teaching Secondary. They're both 2-year full-time equivalent degrees, but for the secondary program, we have an approved, accredited 18-month fast-track version where you take summer and winter sessions as well to speed up the graduation, to speed up the end date. Both of these degrees you go out on crack, you experience in your secondary degree, you need to have 2 teaching areas. So you need to have an undergraduate degree that gives you 2 teaching areas. In the primary degree, you end up as a general primary teacher. So your undergraduate degree would be your specialisation. And I think that's it from me, Cody.
Amazing. Thank you, Alison. We'll get back to you very soon as we move into the panel discussion. Now we have a pretty good idea of the different options we have available from early childhood, primary, secondary, even if we already have a qualification, that we can actually do a shorter course option, which is always exciting to know I can, although I'm going back to university, it might be a shorter journey than what I've once experienced. I know for myself, I've already been at uni for 4 years. Going back for another 4 year education degree would be a very long time. So knowing I can do it in 2 years because I have an existing qualification is actually really exciting, especially because I would be a more mature age student and balancing a home life, family life, and trying to go back to uni and make it all work. A shorter journey seems a lot more exciting for someone maybe like myself. So I guess now we know, I guess, our locations. We know about all the courses we can choose from, including this entry requirements. How are we going to get into uni? How are we going to prepare ourselves? Our next intake starts at the end of February, semester one next year, early 2025. And there's a few different ways that you can gain entry to Uni SC. So the first and foremost, the most traditional way, especially if we have some school leavers here in the audience, is ATAR. So based on a lot of our course entries, an ATAR is required to gain entry and those prerequisites. We also have early offer guarantee for our school leavers. We can partner that up with a QTAC application. The best thing about early offer guarantee, it's based on the school recommendation. So it's not just based on your ATAR or your school results. If your schoolmate thinks that you'd be a fantastic teacher, they can do an assessment and get you through nice and early before everyone else, which is really cool and a really unique offering we offer to our local community schools. We also have a TPP program, which is Tertiary Preparation Pathway. This is a 6-month fee-free bridging program. It's actually ran by the Learning and Teaching faculty. This is a fee-free bridging program that is designed to get you all up to skills. My favorite subject is TPP 101. It's such an American sort of schooling name, where it'll get you up to skills in academic writing, literacy, a small amount of literacy and numeracy support, even things like referencing and how to navigate the university systems and processes. So those units will give you a selection rank by completing them and be able to gain entry into our education as well. If you are missing an English or a maths, this is where these TPP units are going to be helpful. So if you do miss out on entry because you don't have those requirements, you can do these TPP units fee-free, even if it's just to do the English and the maths, 2 out of the 4 units to meet that entry requirements is a great way to gain entry and knock off those prerequisite requirements to get into some of our education courses. We also have diploma pathways, and one of my favorite is selection ranks using a VET qualification. So for example, our brand new early childhood studies program is a rank score of, or an ATAR score of 68. Or a 60. All you need is a certificate 3, especially if you're already working in the early childhood industry and you may have a cert 3 and you've got all that work experience, but now you're wanting to upskill from there. It's a great way to use your existing qualification to apply and upskill based on your work experience and a VET qualification. So a certificate 3 will give you a rank score of 68. A certificate 4 will give you a rank score of 74, and a diploma, any diploma, as long as it's an AQF recognized diploma, will give you a rank score of 82 or an ATAR score of 82. So keep that in mind when you do go to apply. We will talk about QTAC very soon, that if you do have any certificate 3s, cert 4s, or diplomas, attach that to your application. It is a really great source of understanding where your academic skills are currently at and a great way to set up to gain entry into university. We also have an amazing Indigenous direct entry and access scheme. If you are wanting to know more about that, jump straight onto our Uni SC website to learn more about those sort of schemes that we do have available for our Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander students. We also have our Access Uni SC scheme, which is based around adjustment factors and support in that sort of space. So now we learn how to get in. TPP is a really great program where we talk about our support, but the university actually has a heap of support services. A really great thing about being a community-minded university, especially a regional university with regional locations, is that we have so many services available to our local students, as well as our online students. We have a range of academic and study support, careers and employment, health and well-being, financial support and scholarships, student groups and partnership opportunities. We also have counseling, disability and equity, and student success team. If you do identify as having a disability or any sort of impairment or ability that you believe that university may be a challenge to you due to any sort of, as I mentioned, disability and needing some support and access, You can actually reach out to some of these teams prior to even applying. See what university is going to be available to you. Our student access team will be a fantastic team to provide you a heap of information on the support they can offer to make sure that your university experience is a really positive time, no matter where you feel like you're missing out or you have barriers to access. So really catch up with that team. The other really fantastic team is our careers and employment team. You can use them at the start of your university journey or at the end. For example, if you know you want to study education, but you're a bit lost between primary or secondary, catch up with the careers employment team. They do a range of careers assessments, exams, they do one-on-one consults, and they can help navigate what will be a really good fit for you. As Alison mentioned, if you do start off on a journey with primary or secondary or early childhood, if you do get a little bit of way through the course, especially only in the first 12 months, you do have that flexibility that if you do change over, a lot of those units will move over with you. Now, that flexibility and that credit arrangement really works only in the first 12 months where you get the most amount of changeover. After that, you're moving into a more specialized journey. So it's best to make a decision after at least your first year of study. Great. My favorite part of the presentation, we're going to go through our panel discussion. If I could get Grayson and Stacey to jump on camera and join us now. This is a really great time for a lot of our audience members. If you do have questions for our current students, our alumni, and for Alison, or even just want to learn more about your course and what options, especially around placements and commitments, maybe you're someone who's balancing a family and wanting to go back to uni, feel free to start throwing them in the Q&A now, and we'll start answering those lives. But I'm going to kick it off. If we could please get all our panel members to introduce themselves, maybe a little bit about their background, maybe their current role, especially if they're alumni or an academic. And I guess, Alison, even if you have like a research area that you're really interested in, we'd love to know more about yourself and your specializations. And we'll start off with you, Alison.
Sure. Thanks so much, Cody. It's not very often people ask me about my research in these kind of forums, but would you believe that most of my research has been conducted overseas in developing contexts, especially in contexts that are affected by war. So that means I've had the amazing opportunity to work with teachers and understand how they recover education after major disruption. So that's where my research is. And of course, that kind of research for all of our academic staff, and we have a really broad range of research interests amongst our faculty, that trickles into our programs and into our courses. So it's not just the practical skills of how to be a teacher, but it's the why this works and you know what the great reasons are for that.
Amazing. And Alison, how long have you been teaching at UniSC for?
So for a lot of years, this is my 9th year being a permanent staff member. But before that, when I was a school teacher, I was also a casual staff member here and worked in the night times and things like that.
Cool. All right. I think Stacey, over to you.
Hi, so I am a fourth year uni student, so I'm going into my final semester as a primary education student. I have how I got into university was a little bit different as well. So ask me about that because I didn't go the traditional route because I'm a mature age student. So but yeah, I'm actually a student ambassador now as well. So I love my role talking to new students and going around and visiting the schools as well and talking to the actual schools about and students about university, what it's like, because I'm from one of those smaller campuses. I'm from the Fraser Coast campus. And we still have that university vibe on campus. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, so my route into university was through TPP. And because I went back 15 years after I finished high school. So I didn't have any of those prerequisites. And at that particular time, I didn't know about the diplomas and things because I had diplomas in hospitality and it's not something I knew about back then. So I went the TPP route, got the prerequisites I needed, and here I am today.
Amazing. What a journey. That's cool. Change of career. I really love that. What about you, Grayson? What's your university experience been like?
Hi everyone. My name's Grayson and I am a first year graduate teacher. So I'm actually on my second day of school holidays, which is really cool to say that I've finally finished my first year of teaching, which is super exciting. My journey to university was a little bit different as well. I actually did early offer, but I went through back in the day when we still did OP. So probably slightly different to how you would be looking at applying now, but very similar in the sense that, yeah, it was a massive relief knowing that I was actually accepted into university, had an offer that I'd signed before my final grades were even released. So that was a really nice sort of entry point into knowing what I would be doing the following year without all of that maybe seasonal stress that you already have going on. I also was a student ambassador while I was at university, and I absolutely loved it. It was such an amazing opportunity as someone wanting to work in education to start building those connections within the field. So I got to speak to a range of different people in primary, secondary settings and start to just get that information, what it looks like, how to apply for jobs, all those sorts of small, random little bits of information. And that sort of led me to where I am now. So I studied at the Moreton Bay campus, incredibly lucky to have been down there. And I'm now working in the Moreton Bay region. So I studied within about 15 minutes from home, and now I work within 15 minutes of home. So that was a really amazing opportunity that I had all from starting here at UniSC.
That's really cool, nice and local. And I guess Moreton Bay would have been a brand new campus. Like you must have been there with the very first building.
I was actually one of the foundation students. So it was one singular building when we started. And at my graduation in April, I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like two car parks, there's three different buildings, and it's only going to get bigger. And the facilities are amazing. So could not recommend enough.
And I've seen some sneaky plans of some new buildings coming through, including the attachment of obviously the Olympics coming in and some of the sport facilities coming through. And that Moreton Bay area is just becoming busier and busier. So it's a really great space to be in. So I guess like I would love to ask Grayson and Stacey, what made you choose I guess primary? You're both primary students. There's a range of options from early childhood, primary, secondary. What made you choose that specialization in particular? Stacey, you can go first if you like.
I chose primary because I actually really enjoy working with kids in the upper primary space. I had some really amazing teachers when I was in primary school that really believed in me in that grade at the time, grade 6 and 7. But they instilled in me a lot of techniques and things that I didn't know that I needed and could use until I was in like out of high school and in the real world. And I want to try and help kids learn those a little bit earlier than I did, because I've only recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and it's those techniques that I didn't realize I needed, and those types of things. So it's a fun way that I can hopefully bring that to kids now myself.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Stace. And what about you, Grayson? What made you choose primary?
I was actually very indecisive when I was getting ready to apply, and ultimately it came down to my careers advisor at school. He sort of sat me down and he said, well, look, where do you see yourself in 5 years when you're getting ready to graduate? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a massive call. But I think in the primary setting, I, same as Stacey, love working with children, especially in those younger years. That's not to say that I'm going to stay in the primary years, though. I definitely see myself down the track working in high schools, maybe PE, if not potentially even doing further study to go back and become a lecturer at university. I think that I very well could help people through multiple different stages in their education journey. But for me, it was starting those kids really young. And as Steve said, I remember so I'm a prep teacher. I remember my prep teacher very, very vividly. She was just like the sunshine. And I thought I want to be able to give that for my children and then hopefully maybe move up with them, see how I go. But starting in those lower years where I felt most comfortable, I would say, is really what drove that decision to start in primary.
Yeah, I can only speak of in the last month, we're going through the early childhood phase. We've got a little 1-year-old girl. My partner's going back to work next year. We interviewed at a whole heap of places, and then we found a place that made us feel really comfortable. And that teacher relationship, even with the parents and that dynamic, like for us, was so important. Even just doing the stay and plays and just going, yeah, this makes us feel confident in the environment we're putting our little one in. So I can only imagine what it can feel like being a teacher and working in that space. There's a value of like, I do like this space. I do like the people I'm working with, the environment, how it makes me feel, the amount of care everyone puts into, I guess, their education, and I guess inspires me to be the best educator. So I completely get it. So look, we have so many questions coming in around placement, and it is a real key part. Across our nursing courses, a lot of our science courses, education, these placement experiences or these hands-on learning, which gives us so much skill as well as employment opportunities, are a key component on why I guess it makes us like really great at what we do, but also requires a lot of commitment, and it's a little bit of hardship at the same time. It's a big decision where we can go regional, local. And a few questions are coming in, and I'll ask Alison first, but Grayson and Stacey, I would love to hear about your placement experiences. But Alison, how does the placement experience work across our education degrees? How do people apply? Do they get pick or choose or put in preferences? Is there support there? What does that look like?
Yeah, thanks so much, Cody. And I can see those questions coming through, and it is a really big deal to students. So what happens across an education degree is that we have placement courses. So a little hack, when you go to our website and you have a look at the program detail tab on, for your program of choice, go down and have a look at the study sequences, and you'll see if there's a course or a unit that says professional experience, then that's a prac course, that's a placement course. And so we have those in sequence across the program. So for example, in the Master of Teaching Secondary program, there's one in the first semester of study, one in the second semester, and then one in the fourth semester of study across the 2 years. So there's 3 placements that are attached to courses. Usually those placements are done you do 10 weeks of coursework and then you start placement in week 11. If you're doing the primary program, there's 5 placements across the 4 years. And those placements we start 5 days, 10 days, so that's 1 or 2 weeks, and then we build up to 25 days, so that when you go out into the profession, you're not teaching a classroom for the first time for more than 2 weeks. Like it really is. Grayson and Stacey will tell you, it really is a skill teaching for sustained performance that is built up over time. And then when you finally graduate, walk across the stage and go out and have your own class, which Grayson's done for the first time this year, you think, oh my goodness, why are they trusting me for longer than 4 weeks or 5 weeks? But it is something that we build up across. I noticed the question there about, can you lump it all together? No, you can't. It's attached to courses, and you get signed off as you go. So you pass or fail of a placement course, and your supervising teacher in the school helps to make that judgment, and then you move on to the next one. And you can't move on to the next placement course until you've passed the previous one.
Thank you, Alison. And Grayson.
I can't agree more, Alison. I think my first 5 weeks at school, I was just like, oh my goodness, why have I been trusted to be left with these children alone? But I can safely say that after that 5 weeks, I was like, hey, I've got this. Like, I can do this. My placements were very much how Alison described. So obviously very much in a progression and all attached to different subjects. So each prac was, I think my first prac, it was observation only. I didn't teach anything. It was just purely feeling comfortable in the classroom and making those connections with students. So there's no expectation that it's like, hey, we know you've never taught before, jump in and teach a whole lesson on history of Australia. Like, there's none of that. It's definitely very much supported, and you have a lot of different options within your placement to sort of speak up and say, actually, I feel like could I do this with the class? Or I don't feel like I'm quite ready for that yet. Can I have a little bit more support to get me to that place? When you're on your placements, there is so much support available. So it's not like you're sort of just thrown in the deep end. You've got obviously your prac teacher who is there to help you. They're there to help you succeed. So when they're giving you feedback or trying to get you involved in activities with the children, it's because they want to see you succeed. So always keep that as an open mind when you go into those. But you also have your deputy at the school that is there to help out, and you'll have an advisor as well from the university that will reach out to you, whether it's a phone call, email, and just say, hey, how are you going? Is there anything that I can help you with? So if you ever feel like maybe you are struggling while you're on prac, definitely just reach out, ask the question to any one of those people, because they're going to be able to help you. But pracs are really fun. Like, it can seem super daunting, but you need to remember you've done all of this sort of lead up at uni and you're talking about all these exciting things, then to get to go into the classroom and put them in place and be like, hey, this topic that seemed super scary, I did not think I'd be able to do, I actually can do. And I feel like I've got that under my belt now, which is really helpful as in you build on your prac each time. You can sort of think back to your first semester, first prac and go, oh my gosh, I wasn't even confident enough to walk in that room. And now I've got control of 27 kids and I'm teaching this lesson and it's going really well. So it is a really nice reflective journey as well, looking back at where you started versus where you're ending.
And Grayson, just quickly, where was your favorite placement experience? Was it local? Was it regional? What's the one that you really remember from, I guess, your few different experiences that you had?
So I did all of my placements local. I didn't go regional. I actually grew up in central Queensland. So I guess that excitement of going out maybe wasn't there as much for me because I did experience that growing up. Not to say that I wouldn't recommend it. I think country service is one of like the most amazing things that you could do, and the community that you have out there is indescribable. Like you could not compare it to anything that you would get in a regional school. But my favorite placement was about 5 minutes down the road from where I went to school. I did my third and fourth year placement there. So it was really nice. And I actually did a year one placement and then the following year, a year two placement. So I actually got to see some of my kids go through the following year and I got to teach them 2 years in a row on my placement. And that was really exciting. That was my favorite prac, hands down. I didn't think I would enjoy it. It was a massive school, like I'm talking 1,200 students, and I was just like, holy moly. But that big school community was just unmatched. There were so many different people I could go to for different ideas and support, and that really sort of helped me as well going out of my fourth year thinking about job placements because I thought big schools were horrifying to me. Having grown up out west, I was at a school of like 150 kids and I thought that was normal. So moving to Brisbane, I was like, oh my gosh, what do you mean there's 150 kids just in prep? Like that's insane. But I've found a really great sense of community in larger schools, having so many different perspectives and teachers with experience that I can bounce ideas off and really connect with.
That's really cool. I grew up in a little country town myself up in North Queensland, and I guess I was one of those people who, once I was old enough to move out home, I really wanted to try the big city. But yeah, there is the best of both worlds. I do. The great thing about those regional places is that you really do meet those lifelong friends and those real deep connection relationships and that sense of community, which is really cool. What about you, Stacey? What's your placement experience been like? You're in your fourth year. You're obviously coming up to your last placement. Are you wrapping up, or are you moving into your fourth year now?
I'm wrapping up my fourth year. So I am doing my fourth year placement. Sorry, I'm doing my fourth year placement in April next year. So I keep thinking I'm already in that semester. So I'm actually going, hopefully, fingers crossed, rural for my fourth year placement. I've just done my interview and all of that for it. So I'm really hoping to go rural, even though I've grown up in a small town. So Hervey Bay is not massive. I have grown up in a small town. I've lived here my whole life. All of my pracs have been done here, and my last prac was actually done at the school that I went to school at, with a teacher that was brand new to Hervey Bay from Melbourne, who she had not been to a town this small in her entire life. She's just moved up here. And they were doing a whole unit on the history of town. So I got to teach that from start to finish because I knew so much about the school and the town, and the school's over 100 years old. So it's like that is my absolute favorite memory. Like those kids, hands down, have been my pride and joy for all of my pracs. But yeah, like Grayson said, the very first pracs that I did were purely observation. My first prac, it was 2 weeks, building relationships with the kids in the classroom, learning how to communicate with someone. I don't have children of my own, so learning how to communicate with a grade 5 child is very different to communicating with a prep student. So that was very, very, very different for me. And I had a lot to learn in that first prac. So that was my first one. Second one, I felt a lot more comfortable to do like small group teaching. And it's built from there. So now I feel comfortable walking into a school and walking into a classroom, and last 2 subjects next semester, and hopefully I will be out there too.
Cool. Now, Stacey, I've got one more question for you because you are in the thick of it. You're coming up to your final, well, wrapping it up in the next 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
But you did go to university a little bit later. So you obviously have gone through a whole working professional life, change of careers, and the balance that comes with that and change of lifestyle. how did you make the flexibility of university work for you? What does your education course and how did you make it fit into your life? How did you juggle it all with all your other commitments?
The UniSC actually made that really easy for me. Our lectures are not lectures anymore. They are online content. So I could access them any time of the day that I wanted. If I finished a shift so at the time when I started, I was working at Coles. COVID had just hit and I own my own business at the same time. I still own my own business and I still work in that full time as well as study. I study 3 subjects a semester as opposed to a full-time chock-a-block study load of 4 subjects. 3 is still classed full-time. But I study less subjects per semester. So my entire degree, instead of taking 4 years, has taken 4.5. But that has allowed me to focus more on my studies, focus on my prac. I'm still able to work around my prac as well. So I am working in my pracs. We're there from usually 8 o'clock in the morning till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I can then take shifts after work if I feel like it. However, when you get to 3rd and 4th year, even halfway through 2nd year, I found that was a bit too much. And I ended up taking holidays for my last prac. Study-wise, there's no exams. They're all assessment tasks for the education degree. So there's no going in an exam block. It's a shortened semester. It's a 10-week study period for us per semester. And then you have your prac after that. So there's no assessment due while you're on prac. You don't have to worry about any of that. And that's basically because UniSC made it so as I could do online study. I still had to go to my tutorials, but they were 2 hours 3 times a week for the 3 subjects, 1 per subject. And it worked seamlessly. It was the best experience that I have had with schooling.
Still sounds like a lot, and really good effort, especially balancing a full-time workload and getting it done and running your own business, which comes with its own stresses. It sounds like, you're really motivated to get to the end and really dive into that career. And even for me, I studied a business degree, but my placement experience, or I did an internship, that tied the theory to the practical and the reason why I was doing it. I was like, I really love the physical environment, so it kept me motivated to keep on going and getting it done. And it sounds like for you guys, these placement experiences for you guys, or like the observation, the stepping stones. You fall in love with. Grayson was just talking about how she had some her first year students, and she got to see them in the next year, and they've grown up a little bit more, which is really cool. I think the last questions I'm going to focus on is around that graduate sort of outcomes. So first I'm going to ask Alison, and then I'd love to hear from Grayson, her first year experience in the workforce. But Alison, where do some of our graduates go? What are the opportunities available to them? Are there any sort of potential schemes that can support with students going regional or keep staying local?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So there are a lot of incentives at the moment, especially from the Department of Education in Queensland, if you're wanting to work in a state school, to go remote, like to go rural, to get off the eastern seaboard and to go. There's even incentives for, Bundaberg, Mackay, those sort of regions as well. So definitely there's pay incentives, there's accommodation, there's lots of things that we're doing. So we do have a teacher shortage in Queensland, particularly in secondary education, but across the board in rural and remote areas. So we have, I can't remember our stats, Cody, but it's in the high 90% of UniSC graduates who secure employment. And those who don't are usually choosing not to because they've got young families and they've decided to get their degree and then wait for a year or 2 until their kids grow up a little bit, things like that. So we have a really, really high employment rate in our graduate cohorts.
Yeah, it's actually 95% of our graduates across UniSC gain full-time employment within 4 months of graduating. That's a really good point, Alison. I should have brought that up throughout. As we're talking about careers in education, we should have brought up that key line. So thank you very much. And what about Grayson? How's your first year been? You're in the workforce. Obviously, you're balancing study and probably part-time work and being a student ambassador. What's the full year look like for you? Are you able to carry on with the same employer from moving into a second year? How does a graduate program work?
So I was really fortunate. I picked up working as an ambassador in my second year of study, and I continued that all the way through until my fourth year. I was actually offered a job on a shift in my fourth year, which was absolutely crazy to me. I was doing a presentation about just a get to know me at a one of our open days, and unbeknown to me, there was a principal sitting in the crowd, and she came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, we need to have a chat." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And she was like, the way you've spoken, you seem super passionate. Come in for an interview with me. We'll get something sorted." And I was just like, hang on, what? This is not what I've been prepped for. This is not how I thought this was going to happen. I don't have my Teach Starter application. I haven't even got my registration yet. Like, what do you mean? And I went in and had an interview with her and pretty much had a position lined up should I want to take it. So that is just one of the great things about building those connections within the community, because you never know who's listening to you. You never know who you're going to meet. So that was a really sort of eye-opening opportunity, because that was not at all what I was prepared for. I was thinking more traditional route of apply for through Teach Starter, Teach Queensland. It's totally just escaped me. But apply through them, Department of Education, and go through that traditional route of getting your registration and then starting to reach out to schools. But I was also working as a teacher aide while I was studying in my fourth year. So that was another position that I had picked up. That is ultimately what got me the job in the school I wanted to work in. So as much as I had appreciated the job offer that I had received, I actually found a job closer to home and in a school that was wanting to work at. So I had an interview with the principal there, and she knew me from seeing me around the school. And she actually gave me a call and said, "Hey, you should be about finished your degree now." And I was like, "Yep, just finished my final prac." And she was like, "Perfect, come on in, let's have a chat." And from there, I secured a job in prep starting at the beginning of this year. Um, that was a little bit daunting. I was one of those people that was kind of like, I've got my degree, but hey, I might take a year off now and just sort of grow up a bit, mature a little bit more. I think there was a lot of pressure going into my job because I thought I'm so young, because I was a school leaver straight into study and then straight into the workforce. And I kind of thought people are trusting me with their babies. And that is a massive responsibility. And I didn't know if I was ready to take that on. And I did think for quite a while that I was just going to do relief work, which is a fantastic option. You apply with Tracer. At my school, we have about 20 staff away per day, and we're having relief staff in. So there is so much work available. If you're not ready to take on a full-time role, I could not recommend enough. Just ease yourself in with some relief work and see how you go. That's another great step to look for full-time employment, because you do have that opportunity to try different schools, try different year levels, try out different behavior management styles to see what works for you before you sort of lock into any sort of commitment or a contract. But I was really fortunate in that I was offered a contract for semester one, backfilling someone's maternity leave in a prep role. And that actually was extended for the whole year of this year. And I was offered permanency as well, which was incredibly lucky in the Brisbane region to be offered that so early on in my career. So basically, that means that I will always have a role within the Department of Education. They might move my schools, but it will always be sort of at my discretion. Like, I'll be given a heads up about that, but I have great job security and knowing that I pretty much have a role for as long as I would like one within the Department of Education.
That's really cool. And I do get told about relief. And my mum is also a teacher and has been teaching for, maybe like 35 years. And she's now stepped down to a casual relief role as she moves possibly into retirement, but she's not ready yet. And the day rates for the casual relief roles are really quite fantastic. They're really good. They don't come obviously with the same security or anything, but it's a really great way to get in the workforce, try some new areas. I know for my mum, she's actually working at a slightly different school than what she's used to, and she's actually been loving it. So that's been really cool. So Alison, I got a question for you, and this is actually a really common question, especially when we come from a lot of people who work in the industry. In the early childhood area, what is the difference between a Cert 3, a diploma, and a qualified early childhood educator?
Yeah, so the ASEQA is the accrediting body, and I'm trying to remember what that acronym stands for. Australian ACECQA, Early Childhood Association around Australia, and it's a national body. They have set employment, like they've now made it. If you've got a diploma degree, you get paid at a certain level. If you've got a certificate level 3 or 4, you get paid at a certain level. And so if you've got a bachelor degree, even if it's a 3-year degree and you're not qualified to be a primary school teacher, you get more pay. So that's why this new 3-year degree is really helpful, because it's actually commensurate with the industry pay structure. So that means if you've got a bachelor degree, that means you can be the team leader, you can be the director of the centre. So whereas if you don't have a bachelor degree, it's much harder to work your way up in the industry pay structure. So, which is separate, that's separate to the teacher registration structure and schooling, but they have their own structures and levels for qualifications and pay. And it's to really lift the profile of early childhood teaching. We know that early childhood education is really important for life, not just for primary school, but for actual life outcomes. So yeah, so there's a lot of value being placed on early childhood education around Australia at the moment.
I also am aware that you need to have a certain level of qualification when it comes to certain rooms in an early childhood centre. For example, babies need to have a certain level educator as at least a team leader in that space.
That's right. That's right. So if you're going to be the overseer, you're going to be the person who runs the program, who does the planning, who oversees all the compliance in terms of safety and everything like that. It needs to be a suitably qualified person. So that's why getting a degree is really, really helpful for the industry.
Yeah, and from Kathleen, from the same persons, just asked, what's the employment outlook for early childhood educators in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so it's looking really positive. I do need to say that the pay for early childhood educators is not the same as the pay for teachers, especially not in Queensland. So I do need to say that, because I feel like I don't want to give you the wrong advice. But having said that, there are a lot of, as you would know, the state government has made announcements about, up to a certain number of days per week of early childhood care being made available to families, and so there's a real push to get more children into early childhood education so that they are more prepared for school, because we know that the literacy and numeracy research shows us that literacy and numeracy outcomes are better if they're in an early childhood program that's led by a teacher, that's really intentional, play-based learning, and learning about themselves, learning about their families, learning about their communities. And those really early literacy and numeracy, obviously you don't sit them down and teach them, how to say the alphabet, but it's that emergent play-based learning. The Queensland government, but also other state governments around Australia, are putting a lot of energy and effort and making more places available, which means that there's a vacuum. There's a space created for early childhood teachers. So if you do love children in those prior to school contexts, in those settings, there is definitely a career path there at the moment.
I can only speak from my own personal experience in just the last couple of months, and Jodie and Chelsea, who sit quite close to me at desk, has listened to my stresses about trying to get my daughter into childcare.
Yeah.
It is a very high demand area, and due to let's call it cost of living and both parents needing to work and family dynamics in this day and age, that early childhood section is no matter how many of them are opening, and I can only speak from I'm here located on the Sunshine Coast. It is a really tight spot. It requires a lot of planning, and you need to plan ahead. I know Jodie and Chelsea have listened to me complain because for a month I had to go interview heap of places, and then they didn't have spaces available. They only had one day available or two. And it's a really competitive space in terms of employment opportunity, due to a lot of childcare centres are at capacity. In terms of employment opportunities, there's heaps, especially for a really high level qualified educator as well. The more qualified you are, the more skills that they're looking for, especially in these industries between private and government supported educating spaces. Okay. Is there any more questions from the audience? I think we do have a couple more coming through. Alison, this is a very good question for you, because this has been at the top of the federal government's talking points, which is prac placement payments. What is this? Is this actually going to happen? I know it was a big topic and then they didn't back it up with any other words. can you give us an insight on kind of where the conversation is going around paid prac placements?
Yes, yes. And let me just pop a link into the chat. So let me just do this really quickly to everybody so you can see the federal government's promise here. So obviously going out on prac for 5 weeks is expensive, especially when students have to stop their employment so that they can do that, especially if you're going out on rural remote. Now, there are a number of incentives. There's at UniSC, we have a special incentive. The Tim Fairfax Family Foundation sponsors and gives bursaries to students. Queensland Government has the Beyond the Range initiative for going and doing prac placements in rural and remote schools for the state. But just recently, the federal government has announced that they are going to introduce prac payments as of 2025. Now, we're not quite sure how it's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet, but the promise has been made. And we will see this, this work out in 2025, where students will have will receive some kind of stipend while they're out on prac to cover the cost of bread and milk and putting fuel in your car, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't know how much, but there's the information sheet there. And it's not specific to sector, so it's not just primary or secondary or private, government or non-government. It's for all prac students. So yeah, really worth finding out. Now, at the same time, the Queensland government is also putting out new incentives. So let me do a quick search and I'll pop that link in the chat here as well. So the Queensland government is also saying if you do your final placement in a state school, then they're going to give you like a $5,000 something or other. So let me find that and I'll pop it in the chat for you. So there's a lot of incentives at the moment to support prac.
Amazing. And I'm just going to finish it off here before we move into the final part of the presentation, just from each one of our amazing panel members. If there is one piece of advice based from your experience that you would like to pass on to a new potential student who's sitting there on the edge going, do I study? Do I not? Can I make the commitment? Especially for maybe some of our mature age students or some of our school leaver students who are going, can I really look after a classroom? What is your one piece of advice going through university and the experience overall that you would like to pass on to a student? Sorry, I might have put you on the spot here, but you know what? I want to start off with Stacey, who is very much in the thick of it and is near the finish line. What would be your one little piece of advice that you would love to pass on to a future student?
Say yes and always ask for help. So my 2 things, if you say yes to any opportunity that gets offered to you, because you never know where it's going to lead, and jump in with both feet and ask for help. If you think you are struggling even the littlest bit or you don't know the information, ask for help. UniSC will always have someone who can help you. But there is always people on prac. There's people in your family that can help you as well. So jump in. That's my 2 pieces of advice.
Thanks, Stace. Over to you, Grace.
I'm really gonna piggyback off the back of that and say don't say no. If that's one thing I've learned, it's seriously don't say no, because Stacey's so correct. You never know what's gonna take you where and where it's gonna lead you. Another big thing to remember as well, let's say that you apply, you do 1 semester, you go on your first prac and you go, that's not for me. Awesome. No worries. You found out within your first 12 weeks of being at uni that this is not the pathway for you. And I can tell you right now, no one's going to judge you for that. That honestly, you should be commended for doing that. You've jumped in, you've tried something new, you've realized it's not for you. Okay, where do you go next? It's not the end of the world. It can seem like a really, really scary idea that you are sort of preparing for your career. Most people have 7 career changes in their life. So you're just trying something new. And if you realize early on you don't like it, no worries. Time to have that conversation with yourself again. Where do you see yourself? What do you like to do? And try something new and see where it takes you.
That's a really good point. You know, you remove that what if factor, like, oh, what if I did pursue that course and became a teacher? Like, and you just remove it, because if you don't like it, and it's not for you, then it's done. You move on, and there's a lot of life to live where you can seek out other opportunities. That's really cool. I like that point of view.
I'm going
sorry,
to jump
Stacey.
in really quickly on that as well, because even if you're not sure if university is the right thing for you, doing the TPP bridging course, not only is it going to get you the requirements that you need, but it's going to teach you the academic skills that you need. It's going to show you what university life is like. And if you don't think that that's right for you, it's a free program. You can always leave. You don't have to stay there.
Yeah, that's a real try before you buy. I really do like TPP for that. You know, you're not signing yourself up for a HEX loan or anything like that. It's a really great way. The only real catch with TPP is that the teachers are so good that you do want to stick around. Every TPP team member I've got, and they're all teachers and stuff from the past themselves. It's just that real great culture. Alison, over to you.
My one piece of advice would be give it a go and ask a lot of questions. And I feel like that's two things rolled up in one, but just put your best foot forward, you know, give it a go. Ask questions, turn up. I would really encourage students to be present in their studies as much as possible, present online, present in person, and then you can just carry that forward when you go into schools and you're present on track. So it's a really great opportunity for you to grow yourself personally and professionally. And it's amazing, even though when students get to the end, they really are, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're going to trust me with the class. The growth in 3 years, in 2 years for our MTech students, in 4 years for our bachelor degrees for primary and secondary teacher education, it's phenomenal. It's amazing. It's like watching young professionals just grow before our eyes. It's really, really incredible. University is a great experience if you can be present.
Yeah, and it really sounds like that networking. You know, I come from a business and marketing background, and it's like, oh, networking, relationships, stakeholders. It's actually the same thing in education.
100%.
Create relationships, build up platforms, take a leap. Public speaking, it sounds like, you know, for Grayson, it's like, oh, I was in front of an audience and a principal saw me speaking and really liked everything and like my personality and everything I was about. Like, there's a lot of overlap there, which is really cool to see. All right, thank you so much for joining our panel discussion. I'm going to start wrapping up our presentation. There's only a couple of minutes to 7 o'clock, and I'm sure a lot of our attendees would like to get on for the rest of their evening. I'd like to say thank you, Alison. Thank you to Alison, Stacey, and Grayson for joining us this evening. If you do have any more questions, audience members, please throw them into the Q&A, and both Chelsea and Jody will be answering them as fast as possible while we wrap up. So just to finish off, why UniSC? Obviously, we have a 5-star student experience, and we've been recognized that for the last 8 years in a row. We have a truly modern approach to teaching between obviously flexible learning, using online systems and processes, such as our lectures being recorded, and then only having to attend campus for your face-to-face, I guess, classroom setting learning. We have a huge focus on employability, with 95% of our graduates getting employment within 4 months of finishing their university degree. And we have a high performance culture, as you've been able to meet these panel members tonight. One thing we are passionate about is being leaders in sustainability in all forms, from how we treat our campuses to how we treat our degrees. I hope you guys have had a really good time with us this evening. If you would like to engage with us further, or you would like to talk to maybe a study advisor one-on-one, call our Student Central team. Some of them are current students themselves, but they have a wealth of knowledge across all our courses, entry requirements, the best way to apply. So if you need any further advice, if you can call our Student Central team on 075430 2890. And if you are an international student, or maybe you're just wanting to send an email, feel free to email the email address you see on the screen, and they'll be able to get back to you within 3 to 5 business days at most. They are open all through Christmas time. The team will be able to contact you as soon as possible. If you are wanting to do a book a campus tour or book in a time with our study advisors, jump on our website. You'll see little tabs across all our landing pages that says book a campus tour or one-on-one. And that same study advisor that you can just give a call, you can book in a time that suits you. That's everything from us this evening. We love having you guys here. Like I said, if you do need to reach out to us, please contact us anytime. We'd be more than happy to talk about your circumstances and what your future could look like at UniSC. Thank you. That's everything from us this evening, and have a good night.